On today's episode of the Parent Coaching Show, you're going to hear from an amazing step parent. John gives me so much hope for our children because one of the things that I think we're really missing in our culture, here in the States at least, is the collective responsibility that we have to all of our children, all of the children that we come into contact with, that we see out in the world. It's sad to me that children have become an annoyance, that too many adults criticize and judge harshly and judge each other for how parenting is happening. Step parenting, of course, brings its whole next level of complexity about the role that we might play, where the boundaries are, when we should intervene, when we shouldn't. And you are about to meet a man that I just want to hug through the screen because it is so evident, you're going to hear this for yourself, how much he cares about his kids. That just makes me want to cry that this is his context. And so this episode brings up a lot of challenges when you have two parents who have a different worldview when it comes to parenting, particularly when one of them is not the biological parent. And what I think you're going to most get is a living example of how children's behavior and the choices that they make are always a symptom of an underlying need and longing for that need to be met. When we can't meet those needs as parents, our children will look out into the world and reach for other ways, sometimes harmful ways and scary ways, and ways that could get them in deep, deep trouble, life-changing trouble, because they aren't getting what they need from us. And what our children need from us more than ever before is emotional safety and connection. Emotional safety and connection will provide a safe container for our children so that together we can navigate whatever life throws our way. This is a powerful must-listen session. Enjoy.
Hi, Sarah. I'm really pleased that get assistance from you. I know you're an expert, and I've enjoyed talking to you before. I have a situation. My 15-year-old daughter, or she just turned 16, and I felt like we've had a good connection, and I've been trying to do peaceful parenting. And originally, I started seeking help with parenting because I was having problems with my now 15-year-old son, so about a year and a half ago. But things are going pretty well with him, and I thought things were going really well with my daughter. But then about 5 weeks now, we found out that my daughter, who's just turned 16, had been sneaking out. Don't know how for sure how many times, but I caught her on her security cameras. We have an alarm system, but there's a little window between maybe the last time I saw her and the time that she has I set the alarm. And so I guess she was sneaking out in that little window, knowing that there's a little window between when I turn it back on in the morning and turn it off, and just so you could get back in the house. So we don't know exactly how many times, but find out that she'd been vaping again, which is something that we thought we had taken care of last year, but apparently she's been doing that a lot. My wife instituted some things that are pretty typical, like taking away privileges. So really punishment, right? I know they have talked a little bit about what happened. As far as going forward, how that's not what we expected and how that could be dangerous because she was sneaking out and it was late at night. And so she walked like a mile to a gas station to catch a Lyft or an Uber, which actually at her age, you're not supposed to be able to, but I'm sure they don't really check. So talking about the danger, but mainly it was just she got all her privileges taken away. We took the door off so she doesn't have as much privacy. And so we can easier to monitor whether she's there instead of having both doors closed with music on. So you're like, oh, I guess she's busy, that kind of thing. Because that's what I ran into the night that I found out that she snuck out. made it look like, she was still there. Um, but I don't really know what I could do otherwise, other than taking away those privileges and then gradually start getting them back. Hey, you're doing well. And to have those conversations about, why we have the expectations we have, why we have the values that we have, and why we don't think that those things are really good, and how to make the connection there so that hopefully this wouldn't happen again. So there wouldn't even be a need to, do I punish, or we need to talk some more. So I think the talking part is the thing that we needed the most. And especially with her mom, they have had a kind of a fractured relationship, and that's been a lot of what she and I have talked about. So I thought we had a really good relationship. She was telling me stuff that was going on, but that never really helped with her mom. And so that's something that has worked out in the last 5 weeks, probably maybe just the last 2 weeks, that they've started spending more time together and talking and hanging out. And I think that's really kind of what my daughter was looking for. And so finally, one of her older sisters and I have mentioned things to her mom before, but she didn't seem to want to listen. But I think now that she realizes that, so there have been some discussions and some things have looked up. But how could we have maybe handled that in the beginning as a peaceful parent trying to make a connection with the child in lieu of maybe doing any? It just seems like, well, you got to start somewhere. But I know this is kind of a big situation and very different, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for trusting me with your heart and with this really complicated situation, because you're right. Sometimes in parenting, we do things and then we say, oops, that wasn't the most peaceful approach. And I want to know better what to do next time. God forbid there is a next time, or I want to learn from this experience so that we can have more connection. Can you give me just a very brief description about the family dynamic? You talked about her mom, but you are not biologically related. Is that true?
Right. So that is kind of a important thing. I've been a stepdad of just a little over 5 years. And so to me, they are my kids, but now, especially and that's usually fine and good with her and me taking care of them and making decisions until it's not, when something goes wrong. So actually I became under a lot more than I think mom even put herself under the microscope of what she had done as a parent. I got put under that microscope of, oh, well, like it was all my fault that she was doing these things. But, my daughter had been talking to me about things, and the big thing was the relationship with their mom, but also in the house, um, the older sister, who's 36, has some mental illness issues, and so she's been staying at home for the last 5 years ago or so, and does have a couple older sisters that have already moved on, late 20s, early 20s. The one in the early 20s is still in the area. Younger brother, mom's last child, only boy, and then also the oldest daughter's grandson is 12. So you got 12, 15, and 16 in the house, and then a couple older sisters out there too.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful to know, because I heard you say a couple of things that I think are going to be helpful as we unpack this. One of the things that I heard you say is that this child who is sneaking out and vaping again and doing a lot of the behaviors that are tricky in your eyes, and understandably so, perhaps stem from a long-standing tricky relationship with her mother. You are newer on the scene, and you are really the driving force of peaceful parenting within your home. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, mom is definitely a parent over. Very much, I'm the parent. You do what I say. This is what you're going to do, not going to do, and I definitely feel that my daughter is the need for autonomy and independence and those things that teenagers go through is very strong with this one, with her. She's, and I feel that's part of what's going on. And then just not having the connection with mom to, just go ahead, talk about a boy or something, or just talk about stuff that normal teen girls want to talk with their mom about. And that hasn't really been there.
Yeah, I get that. And I am so glad that you are a force for positive change in your family, because you love these children. You were establishing a trust-based, connection-based relationship with this child. So I can imagine for you as the dad, now it is heartbreaking to see, I thought this beautiful thing was happening. Didn't that hold more water? Didn't that hold more weight than it appeared to? So I hear your desire to continue the healing journey. I also hear that there's a whole lot of stuff from the past that was potentially really damaging to the relationship. That being said, it makes perfect sense that this child would be looking for other relationships that will feel safer, perhaps to her, than the one with her mom did while she was growing up. And yes, you are part of that equation for sure. And certainly at that age, especially if she is feeling a bit squashed in terms of her autonomy and her self-worth and all of that sort of thing, she's going to seek that validation wherever she can get it. I love hearing that she and her mom have started spending a bit more time together. I heard you say that in the past 2 weeks, they've had more of that than perhaps they've had in a really long time. And the magic words I heard you say were, that's probably what she needed all along. Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. So, in the situation where you catch her sneaking out or vaping or whatever kind of behavior that's tricky that she is engaged in, number one thing that I would stress is do everything you possibly can to create emotional safety for her. Now, that does not mean that the behaviors are okay. This does not mean that you turn the other cheek and say, we're just not going to address that because we're only concerned about your emotional safety. Emotional safety absolutely can and should coexist with healthy limits that keep her safe. So yes, I think there's a lot of repair work to be done. I love that your wife is spending more time with her now and helping meet that need so this daughter does not have to search for it as much outside of the home. And you're absolutely right. That punitive approach is really only more likely to drive her away farther and faster. So, what does that emotional safety look like? I would dare say that this is where we get radically non-punitive. And some people are going to say, hold the phone. That's so different from everything I've ever done
Right.
before. And it sounds like it'll be the case for your wife. And believe me, we can all be a work in progress. That is perfectly okay. But what that emotional safety is going to look like is, sweetheart, I get how much you must have been suffering in order to feel that you needed to do all of these things behind our back. If you had felt safer at home, there is a chance, not a guarantee to be clear, but there is a chance that perhaps whatever underlying need you had that was making you feel like you had to do these things, we might have been able to meet for you in some way. So, yes, we are going to need some professional support above and beyond parent coaching. We are going to need whatever resources we can find to help you and your mom, and likely all of us, heal and repair the relationship so that going forward we can talk through concerns, fears, potential problems before we end up with a big explosive mess in front of us that none of us really knows what to do with. So, first thing I want to do, and here is again, radical statement. It might begin with an apology, or I am sorry, sweetheart, that I did not create the kind of emotional safety that you needed to feel like you could come to me and talk to me about whatever was bothering you at such a fundamental level that you felt like you had to do these things. I want more safety with you. I want more connection with you. And I commit to showing up with you to helping you solve problems so that you don't feel like you have to run away in the middle of the night and do these things. That was a whole lot really quickly. John, how are you feeling?
Uh, Better, more hopeful about the situation going forward. I do feel now that mom and her are connecting, which is something that, I've talked to one of her older sisters recently about, that we've been telling her that that's what she needs. But mom, maybe a little hard headed. Now that they're spending a little bit more time together, I kind of feel even more left out. Like I felt left out for about the first couple of weeks. We didn't really talk, but she didn't have any of her privileges. And I knew that she was brooding a little bit, a little bit mad. One, I'm the one that caught her, and then two, mom wanted to go to school, and so we talked to the principal and one of her teachers, and mom wanted to make sure that she knew. I didn't really think that was a great idea, but she was like, "Oh, we'll leave on your little, visitor stat tag, so she knows we went there, right? That we're not just making it up or whatever." And that really led to a few days of her not really seeming to ignore me and not want to engage. And then I finally did talk to her and ask her what she was feeling, and she's like, "I just, don't really want to talk to y'all like that anymore, And it's like, well, that's the opposite of what I'm going for. But that, like I said, she passed her drug test. So as far as we know, she hasn't been vaping anymore, or at least not THC vape. That one doesn't test for nicotine, the test that we did. And so she got to get one thing back. So she's got her phone and her headphones now back. And so she's a lot more connected with the world. And she didn't realize how much she used her, the practical times that she used her phone, not just for social media, because she's really big on TikTok. How she needed that. But now the last 2 weeks, I see her and mom bonding, and I feel even more left out. I feel less connected with her. And so I really want to make sure that I get back in there to connect with her, because I thought we had a really good connection, especially for a step parent to jump in and then all of a sudden realize that, man, I wish I'd had a daughter all along, and to feel really close and feel like she was talking to me. Obviously, I missed some things, and then there was just some roles or needs that I couldn't fulfill. And we had talked about that before, that I can't be everything for her. It's just me. I can't really be her mom, even though in some ways I am, because mom does work a lot more, but the personality clashes that they've had over the years have certainly been a part of that. So I just want to figure out how going forward I can best, approach rebuilding that connection. Trust is like my number one thing. That's one of the things I said probably like 3 years ago when we weren't really even talking much, and I first took her somewhere. Is I wanted to know that that's one of the most important things to me. And so this is a big breach of that, but I don't take it personally, because I know it really wasn't. Well, even if she just said, "Well, you're just a horrible parent, that's why I did this," that's not really what she meant. I do know that there was other stuff that was going on, but I
Well, John,
feel a little bit lost right now.
for sure. Well, your feelings make perfect sense. And I just want you to know that healing is absolutely possible for all of you. Be gentle with yourself. You are the one who started to bring peace into this family. I am completely confident that you can help be a part of the peaceful resolution that your family will find, and you will be able to rekindle that trust-based relationship with this child, because you were the first one to really show up for her. So I want to celebrate what you brought into this family. Be gentle with yourself, be gentle with them. It's going to be bumpy, but with additional support, you can absolutely come back to a place of non-punitive and connection-based existence together. Thank you for sharing your heart with me.
Thank you so much. That's very, very enlightening and insightful. And just, like I said, make me feel really, really much more hopeful about what's going on, and that the future is going to be bright for us.
Oh, Sarah. Wow. What a story. And I'm sure a scenario. I mean, I was having flashbacks of being a 16-year-old girl. And I don't think I ever did go out the window, but I certainly begged my friends while being punished for a month to send up a rope so that I could climb down. Layered with, this being John's just clearly such an amazing dad and stepfather. Like, there's so many directions we could go in talking about this. I'm curious to ask you, what do you think are the most kind of salient points to kind of glean from that conversation for our listeners?
Ooh, good question. Let me start with the top 100. So, kidding, but there's a lot we could do. One of the things that really sticks out to me is something that he started to name towards the end of our conversation, and that he has a deep desire to be seen and valued as a dad. Notwithstanding the fact that he is not the biological parent of these children, he loves them with all of his heart. And if we can help this man stand in his presence find his voice and continue to make an impact for the better on this family, that's everything right there.
Yeah. So John is a student in our parent coach certification program. And I was just, I mean, obviously we have hundreds and hundreds of students. I don't know many of them personally, but it just struck me so like in my gut that he would make such an investment of his time and energy and resources to do this for these kids. I mean, I just want to hug John. If you're watching this, like I am sending you the biggest virtual hug on the planet. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, this role of step parenting is so challenging. And he really named it, right? Like I'm needed until I'm not. You know, my opinion is wanted until it isn't. And this is so normal. I think this is a really common struggle that blended families face. What are some steps, like if you're co-parenting with a non-biological co-parent, um, to help people feel that more like the family ethos that we're all one, that there's not exceptions to that because it's hard.
It is incredibly hard. And for me, step one is simply naming the proverbial elephant in the room. This to me sounds like a beautiful opportunity for a parent like John or anybody else who feels relatable with his story to have a conversation with their parenting partner, with their co parent, to say, I love these kids. And I want to contribute in a way where I feel like there's a partnership here. I acknowledge that perhaps I wasn't there for all of the years, but I am committing to be here for all of the years going forward. And in order to do that, I can't feel like an outsider. I can't feel like I only get called up to bat when it's time for the B team to start playing. I need to be a partner in this relationship, in this family going forward. So what can we do to help that feel emotionally safe for you so you don't feel threatened, but also create a space where my voice can be heard and I can feel that I get to show up here too.
Mm. Oh my gosh, it gave me chills and made me a little prickly behind the eyes. I mean, isn't that just everything that kids want? Like for someone in their lives to say, you matter and I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And this relationship is one of the most precious things in my life. I mean, I could just imagine a child melting and a partner melting to hear that kind of statement. It's like, oh, life changing. It is a radical idea for many people that, you know, a 16-year-old sneaking out of the house, getting an Uber from the gas station a mile away should not be met with punishments, grounding, losing privileges, you know, going to the school and talking to this, right? Like that is what good parents do in the traditional parenting model. And I feel like I say this on every episode. I do. All behavior is an expression of a need. And whether that need has been met or unmet, I will stop beating this drum maybe by episode 102. Um, the thing that you said that just really brought me back to 16-year-old Kiva was, of course, she's seeking this feeling, this need that she has outside of the home when she has 16 years of evidence that it's not going to get met here. And that the response, therefore, is to not create more separation, give her less of what she's, I'm sure, been demanding through her behavior for a very long time by bringing her in closer. If someone's hearing that for the first time and they're skeptical, can you explain a little bit more about why that's more effective in the long run?
For sure. And I want to, first of all, validate how weird this is going to sound to a lot of people. Because to your point, Kiva, it is not mainstream parenting. We are in a rewards and punishment society. So for somebody who's hearing this for the first time, I invite you just to open your mind, open your heart, and listen with curiosity, because it's really easy to assume that this will never work. This will completely backfire. That kid's going to get away with horrible things. And next thing you know, we're going to not have him come home one night. No, not necessarily. In fact, we have so much evidence that says the kids who feel more emotionally safe are more likely to stick around, more likely to seek us out when they're struggling, more likely to, even if they are still pushing some of those boundaries and getting sucked into behaviors that might not be healthy, they're more likely to drop hints with us because they want to be seen. They want to be found out, because it is all, to your point, I'm standing on the soapbox with you. It's a double wide. It's a beautiful thing. All behavior is communication. And all of these kids are saying, will somebody please see me? Will somebody please love me? And especially for a 16-year-old, a lot of parents are going to be operating from a place of fear. If I don't nip this in the bud right now, it's going to be horrible by the time they move out. And guess what? They're almost out the door as it is. I need to squash this behavior right this second. This is actually wrong. This is a pivotal moment in parenting where when they turn 18, that door doesn't necessarily close. If we scare them, if we punish them, if we make them feel shame, it will be a one-way ticket out the door for them. However, if we create that emotional safety where they feel like they can actually come to us and we will help them with their struggles. Yes, the door is still there, but it's going to be this beautiful revolving door where they're going to still want to be a part of our lives, even after they're old enough where they don't necessarily have to be. When we create this emotional safety right now, we can do years of repair within the short amount of time we have left, and completely, radically heal the relationship to where there's still a chance of reconciliation and closeness, short term and long term.
Mm, yes, 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 yes. It's never too late. I think, I'm curious about other parents that have come through Jai that have older children. I hear this belief, I didn't parent this way. This is new to me. Is the relationship beyond repair? How do you respond when that inevitable concern arises?
I'm going to share a personal story with that. I had a really, really tricky relationship with my dad for a whole lot of years. I'm 49 years old. It's still tricky in a whole lot of ways. And yet, not that long ago was Valentine's Day. He lives across the country from me. But on Valentine's Day, I went and I opened my mailbox. There was a Valentine's Day card from my dad and a check for $10. Just $10. But it was a token gift of, I still love you. I still want you. And even though here I am at 49 years old saying, there's some stuff that honestly might never get fixed while we're still earthside, just the fact that he is still attempting to show up for me, perhaps in ways that he didn't always while I was growing up, gives me, the inner child that I'm still carrying around with me, a reason to keep seeking that connection, a reason to keep inching toward a learned secure attachment, even if I did not have a secure attachment with him growing up. So again, case of one, but representing ever so many. We always have this basic fundamental desire to be close to the people who, air quotes, should be our primary attachment figures. It is never too late for healing, no matter how much water has gone under the bridge, no matter how old we get. We always still want some aspect of that, no matter how small it may be.
I completely agree with you. Another thing I know comes up quite often is when these moments, right? Like these kind of like, what is that called? When fork in the road. Like what's the thing, Sarah? These fork in the road moments where we become aware in a new way that something has been going on, it can be very easy as a parent to slip into shame and guilt and coulda, shoulda, woulda, and I wish I had done things differently. How do you support parents through that feeling of I caused the relationship with my child harm?
Huge compassion. Some people might assume that those of us who do this gentle parenting work are looking down on everybody else. I promise you we're not. Number
We've
one,
all been there.
yes, for sure. I want to normalize parenting is tricky for every human on the planet who engages in it. So I'm going to meet that parent with huge compassion and say, step one is to be so gentle with yourself. Give yourself so much grace. If I were a betting woman, I would bet that all you are doing is what your brain told you was the right thing to do. This is more than likely a pattern that you received when you were growing up. When you received that pattern, your brain said, okay, I have learned the roadmap. When I encounter X, I do Y. All you were doing was what your brain told you to do. There is no shame in that. Now that you're in a place of knowing more, I am actually not going to quote that partial Maya Angelou quote that everybody wants to insert right here. When you know better, you do better. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. But when you do know new things, when you learn new things, start with self-compassion and inch toward sharing that compassion with your child. The reason I don't say when you know better, do better is that oftentimes parents who are coming from a place of shame think that next time that I don't do better, I have failed. And that can actually exacerbate the shame. That's not what we want to do here. Instead, every time we struggle, increase the grace, increase the compassion, because the gentler you are with yourself, the more receptive your brain will be to learning new patterns and continuing to heal that relationship. And that right there is everything.
Mm. Sarah, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for all the beautiful work that you do. I'm so grateful that you shared John with us and that John shared himself and his story. I know it's going to help so many people.
Oh, I'm so glad to do this work with you, Kiba.